Good morning, this is Brian Whitten and ET Art. I did have purpose for another video, although I did say I was going to have a rest for a bit. There was something that did crop up and I thought it was best to make a short video to explain it. It was of interest, and I'd certainly become aware of a few other things having watched the documentary only a couple of I suppose a week ago, and became aware of something else that I thought I would put up. Before I go on, I will also say that I have seen our Prime Minister on TV or on YouTube putting up a post about the pedophiles being arrested, being given no penalties, and that would be the situation where they're looking at putting a life sentence in place. When it comes down to the former members of Parliament being arrested for the same process and life imprisonment for those, I would expect that removal of all assets be part and parcel of that process, be it wife's or children's. It'd all be removed and put back into the coffers of the country. I wanted to bring up one matter with this rock, or at least a couple of matters with this rock. I'll insert a picture now on what we're looking at in this image here. All of this image is just the very chip that you can see out of the corner of this rock. Okay, so that's what we've got under the microscope. I showed this to my son the other day. He said, "Wow, you can see that pyramid there really easily, Dad." I said, "Yeah, I know, I haven't put any light on it but outside of the microscope light." What I wanted to come back here for was to see this guy's face here, with his eye and his nose and his lips, he with this crested head. It's on the same one that we get this dinosaur here wearing glasses. There's a dinosaur figure comes out here wearing glasses, and then when we move the light it comes up to a rather large, elongated skull alien. That's actually what goes on when I move the light around on this one. The reason I wanted to say that is it appears to me to be, and we're getting told, the people on our world that have Rh negative blood, I've seen reports of such things, that they are not from Earth. I would suspect a lot of us aren't from Earth, and I have said, and we'll go through the process again today, that when our other star was ejected, it took out one planet, made Mars unlivable, or at least unlivable at the moment. We will discuss our trip beyond Mars a little later, but we are saying that we are looking at the planet being made up of the populace and the peoples on it, on Earth, being created from 3 different planets, not one. Okay, that is why we also, I would expect, see a triangle in the 3 corners of a triangle in so many things, is that we are in actual fact a build-up of peoples of multiple planets. I wanted to show you that, to say that maybe here he's telling us this is where he got involved. There is one species of us, humans, that he did get involved with. I actually think that at the time that this event happened there were humans through the solar system, but on the planet Earth, which was beyond Mars, and I'll tell you why when we get to that point later, that he in actual fact has told us that he did manipulate one race of hominoids, and they were probably on Earth when it was living beyond Mars. I'll say one other thing. I know I mentioned dark-skinned people here. I don't mean to be racist. But from an evolutionary perspective, why do you need dark skin if you're going to evolve and have a period or length of time for evolution to take place? When are you going to develop dark skin? In my opinion, you're going to develop dark skin to try and get more body warmth. You're going to be further away from the sun from an evolutionary perspective. I would expect the dark races on our world here evolved not here. They were evolved when Earth was on the outer, before it was moved, and that is why we have dark skin. You do not need dark skin to attract body warmth in a warm climate. So in actual fact, the dark skinned peoples of our world, I would expect they evolved on Earth, but certainly not when it was on the inner ring of rotation. I'll show you one other thing I wanted to show you with this rock, and I will kick this movie off. And I said to you there was a mind control going on in some respects here when I got the light to a certain point where you saw this happening here. you can see a man kneeling down here. You also see the number 97 come up in here. I don't know what that means. I've tried to work out what 97 means. But 97 comes up. I've went and had another look at that rock today. I thought it come up and actually had the numbers 911 drawn in this at one point. Now I've said to you that you see a spiralling, twirly line come back off this man that's kneeling down here. When you get the light right, you can almost see that 97 come in there. That's where that 97 gets drawn in there. Okay, you can also see, like I said, the cow figure come up and it tells us what star sign he left to. And this is where our dinosaur turns into wearing glasses here. You can see the alien's head come back here as well. The reason I wanted to mention this here down here though, as I said to you, that there appears that sometimes you get the light right. It looks like a man kneeling down here, and there are people sitting back here at desks and tables. What we're seeing here is not mind control. I thought that's what it was, but I can assure you, I will show you a picture now. So if we're talking mind control, that's why I brought this image back up. I can tell you now, I sat in this room, in a darkened room at probably 3 AM in the morning. Well, probably, I sat here for 2.5 hours, if not longer, in the dark, just looking at this thing with no noise. If they're using mind control, it wasn't happening that day. I can tell you, I got up and was annoyed at myself because 4 times I got up to actually explain what this was doing, only to stop halfway through and say, well, that's not right. That's not right. And then I got a bit annoyed with myself, not working it out. And even to the point when I actually did put the video up, I still was uncertain as how I could see the movement down and back, not accounting for this bit up here. And it was an actual fact, the point of saying, now what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, now the planet is in plane or a little bit or below the plane of the sun, 1st of July one year, next year, next year, next year, 1st of July every day. We're just looking at the point of the planet in relation to the sun and the plane of the sun for 6,000 years, so which is why we're seeing this come down and go back. And this movement here is the one, it's one of the cycles. It puts our planet rotating around the sun in the opposite direction. That's what that process is. It rotates the planet one way, and or around the sun I should say, in the opposite direction, and the planet rotates the same way. And they do that both on the inner and outer rim. But that, if there's mind control going on, they were not doing it here, and that was probably a time where they could have done it, but they wrote the line on the rock, the white line on the rock getting installed. I'll just install a still picture for you, but you can go back to the programmable rock video and that line gets drawn on the rock in the middle of making the video, so it was pretty impressive stuff. That was a direct communication. It has to be, because it was an actual fact telling me exactly what this did here. It was just a half loop that I was looking at it, and being a half loop, it means the planet still spins around the sun. It just means that this plots a given point at a given time of the year. So for 6,000 years it just plots it down and plots it back up, and it comes back up and goes around the sun in the opposite direction than it was. But like I said, mind control, there was no mind control going on here. I can tell you now, I was sitting here nutting this out, trying to work out what the hell was going down with it, you know. And in the end they still communicated through the rock. It wasn't mental, you know, a mental implant like the vision I had of my mother's murder. That was a different thing, and I mentioned my mother's murder and that vision I saw because it was as clear as a bell. It was, I wasn't asleep, I knew I was awake. I just closed my eyes for only a second and thought, well, it's too cold to get out, and bang, that happened. And that's why I wanted to come back there. I'll show you back to the other rock now, and we'll discuss why I've mentioned it. I know you get a bit of glare off my open kitchen window. This is where I was saying to you that it seems to be that we're getting, I thought initially it was mind control. I'm not so sure that that's in fact what we're talking about here. I believe what we're seeing here is the trials that they're going to carry out when they get here, which is why they gave me the vision, meaning that they can do that. They're technologically that advanced. They can recover a memory from a person standing here, kneeling down. So what this guy's doing is kneeling down, and get him in the right light. You can get a guy standing with him There's another guy standing there, and there's desks back here, all look like computer terminals and people sitting at desks. So I've uploaded this in pretty good quality at the end of My Rocks Part 3. So you can go and stop and start this anytime you want. I'm just putting it here to show you that that's where you see these guys back here, sitting at these desks here. What you're seeing here is a trial. These are what's going to happen to the people here. Right, so in other words, you can stand, you might think, oh, we'll go in, we've got barristers, solicitors. I ain't a barrister or a solicitor anywhere. The cooee of these trials, I can tell you. This man comes in, he stands and kneels down, and they extract from his head his visions of his life. You will, like I said, you can come with good out of your mouth when we get to the day of meeting with these peoples. If you haven't got good in your heart, man, you'll go nowhere. I can tell you that now. There will be no bluffing these boys. And that's what we're seeing here. I believe that they are showing us a trial. I think that's one of the things they wanted me to show you. The other thing I did make a note of at the end of the last video was in actual fact exactly that we were looking at the situation of the Australian continent being separated. They wanted me to tell you and let you know it has been separated from every other landmass. I did say you could work it out, but it'll be because the base for them when they get here will be Australia. That's exactly why that's happened the way it is. I'll go on, I'll show you one other thing about our trip to Mars now. Now I've just put this up on the screen just very quickly. It was something I saw the other day. There was a few things in this. I just wanted to make sure that the person put this work up here. It's a Mystery History Channel, and it's an alien antenna found on the seafloor in Antarctica. And it goes on to explain a few other bits and pieces. That's where I got this information from, so I will go on from this point and show you that in this video it had the following information inserted, and I thought I would stop where it was because I seemed to understand what it was I was looking at. So I'm going to go away from that now and I'll show you the next thing. I just wanted the persons that put the effort into putting that up to be aware that's where I found the information. Now before I move on from the underground aerial or the underwater aerial, or what appears to be that, I wanted to discuss the two rings of rotation of planet Earth around the Sun. We are told there are two rings of rotation, an inner ring, which is the one we're on, 93 million miles away, and an outer ring of 186 million miles away, 40 million miles beyond Mars. It's what we're getting told. We're getting told on this plate that is found in the US. It is a Chinese plate. It has these rotations here because in actual fact the rotation of the planet Earth is changed, not by changing it and stopping it and going back in the other direction. It is purely when it's pushed from the inner ring to the outer ring. It is laid flat like this with the North Pole pointing in an outwards direction. It takes one incident and it is allowed to move out on its own. It does not need any further involvement of them to get it to the outer ring. That is what the lesson is here. It actually goes out on its own. It does not come back on its own, and I have made a video where I said it does. It does not. It actually takes multiple occasions to come back in. That's why I wanted to make this video. Correct something that I'd said that was incorrect. Like I said, there's more and more comes to me when it does. I feel that there's something I've got to put up, I'll put it up. We are seeing, in my opinion, then, what we're seeing left here, the message is that coming back in from the outer ring is not just push it over and it goes back. It goes out that way. It does not come back the same way. That is one place where you are depicting two rings of travel. The next one I will show you. The Tirumali Jain complex in India. Temple there has this embedded in the wall. It is also, in my opinion, telling us exactly that. It has the 4 cycles here. The full cycle here is 96,000 years between each one of those rotational changes. What it does is complete it at 96,000 years, with the North Pole being the North Pole, South Pole being the South Pole, and when it brings it back in from the outer ring here, back into the inner ring. When it does that, it goes, pushes it out that way. When it lays it over that way, it brings it up that way, and that's how it gets the change in rotation of the planet itself. It doesn't actually physically stop the planet, it just rolls it over and picks it up the other way. This is the other thing that's showing us the two rings of rotation, both inner and outer. The other one out beyond Mars is why I mentioned to you about dark-skinned people. They're going to develop and evolve in the outer ring. They're going to have dark skin because they want to attract warmth. That's where they're going to evolve. They're going to evolve out here. So the dark-skinned peoples on Earth evolved out there when Earth was beyond Mars in its travel. I will show you one other thing in respect to the temple. And once again, just before I go on, I will mention Praveen Mohan's name again associated with the work here. He does some really good work. I like Praveen's videos. They're very eye-opening. I watched one about something he put up the other day about perpetual motion machine. But what I wanted to do was come into here and just show you that in this here we're seeing the creation of new planets, or the destruction of an inner planet here. And we're looking at these lines here being reflective of Nibiru getting shot out, or our other star being cast out, and the destruction of a planet here. The planet we actually got destroyed, I believe, to be where we're sitting at the moment. Where Earth is sitting is in actual fact where the planet was destroyed. And Earth is swung back in to take the place of that. And I will show you why that's the case in a minute, but certainly it does not, you know, when a people need to develop a dark skin, it would be certainly to get warmth from the sun. You're not going to get to be a dark-skinned person and evolve that way without the requirement for the dark skin to be there. So you want to absorb heat. Therefore, I would expect, like I said, Earth, that before this event was beyond Mars, and that the dark-skinned people were evolving out here, the white-skinned people, or the Rh negative, were maybe their manipulation of a hominoid species on the planet to try and bring them up to speed. I don't know. But it certainly would not expect all the light-skinned races on the Earth to have come from Earth. I'll show you why. Now I've come back to a still frame that was screen freezer I took off the video I just showed you about the antenna, or the underwater antenna, because this is also in the same video. It's got a cave painting, and I froze that immediately and recognised. I'll just do an inserted image again now of the Egyptian light bulbs. They're a globe. We're talking about Earth in those images, as they are talking here. What we're talking, in my opinion, here with what we've seen from the other Egyptian globes is the two flat cycles here. So this is the one that pushes us out, lays us flat and pushes it out beyond Mars, and this is the process that brings us back in. This one here being a hand, saying that it's laid flat and it needs a hand lifting up at the other end. It's exactly what it says on the other Egyptian glyph. It says that just here. I'll do an insert. This is the hands lifting the globe up. They lift it up because it's laid flat for the entire cycle. So the whole 6,000 years, Earth has got a precession of about 12,000 years, and it goes like so, and is on an expanding plane. So if you can imagine a balloon, as it's rotating around the sun, it's expanding like this gradually until it gets out beyond Mars, and then they stand it back up and put it on a ring of rotation 40 million miles beyond Mars. In my belief, it's exactly where it was when this event happened. It was beyond Mars, and they were reptilians. At the time that this happened, they must have been extremely advanced already, and already had more than likely interstellar travel at this point that it actually happened. They would have to have been that way to have put Earth back where it was. they would already have had to have been of the people with the intelligence to stop the Earth going from wherever and save the peoples and move the planet to and from. They must have been as advanced then to do it, otherwise nothing would exist now. That's the reality of it here. These people were extremely smart. 15 to 20 million years ago they were doing this. That's what I'm saying. We're even just thinking our armies, all of them, against the technology of these people, we would look like a Boy Scout with a pack of marbles. I'm not kidding. It's a waste of time. You don't fight people that do these sorts of things. They don't want to, actually. They're trying not to do that. There may be people in command of armies stupid enough to think they can do something, but there's nothing you can do. What I wanted to talk to you about here is what I believe we're seeing here in this one here. This is very important because you actually see like a vase sort of standing down there and sort of standing up here. But what I think we're seeing here, this is the 6,000 years movement of back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 come back to meet the plane of the sun, the inner ring. The planet's getting stood up halfway through the cycle here, in my opinion. That's what this is meaning. This slash across here in this straight line. That's what I believe is the case there. That this is laid flat for the whole cycle here. It isn't here, it's stood up halfway through. Why I say that is because here we see an E, which is the end of the cycle. And this is where, at that point, instead of flipping back the way they had it, they flip it the other way, right? So in other words, the rotation of the globe happens at this point, 3,000 years through the cycle that brings us back into the inner plane. When it gets stood up here, it is now, it may be standing up with a straight axis here for this 3,000 years, like as in rotating around the sun, but with a straight axis. I say that because it would appear to me to be, they're saying to us with this is like a sulky or whatever, the Asians are getting put back on the earth here. Right here is where the Asians go back on 500 years after this event. This event here used to straighten the globe and propel it further forward. 500 years later, and this is Earth, right? We are now putting the Asians back on the planet here. This is what this is saying to us. Puts the Asians on here, it's got a mummy dressed up here. So they're saying after 1,000 years, at 1,100 years from that point, we're putting the Egyptians back on. So we're saying that the Asians did not evolve on Earth here. That's what they're telling us. That's my opinion, that's what that's telling us. So that would make perfectly good sense. There is no way in the world, you will hear racist people say Asians all look the same. They do not look the same. The Japanese people are very, very specific. How can you evolve as a Japanese person on an island like that and look like no other Asian people around you? You cannot evolve like the Asians have on this world. It's impossible. What they're saying here, in my opinion, is the Asians were living on another planet, probably Mars, which is where they are. When this goes out here, what I believe happens, while we've got reptilians and dinosaurs and such things on the rocks, is that out here, the people that are under our planet and inside our planet at the moment, which they are there, would appear, that here they come up to the surface. They get run of the surface when it's out beyond Mars, and the people that are on Earth get put back on Mars, and Mars gets turned into a habitable planet again, and we will do this ourselves. We will help build Mars again, because that's exactly what the process is here. The process is here to make sure that everybody goes on from this point, is of a good person that's not going to sit here and do these unspeakable things to children and other humans and etc. And like I said, this seems to be a warning that goes both ways, to humans, to reptilians, and vice versa. That the eating of each other is unacceptable, the behaviour is unacceptable. But certainly here I'm seeing that we are looking, to me, that Asians did not evolve on Earth, that Asians evolved on Mars. The other here being where we come in, I don't know, like the white guys, maybe they tried to evolve, which is why I started off with that human. There is a dinosaur figure there with a facial feature of a human. So is he saying that maybe he tried to manipulate one of the hominoids on Earth when it was beyond there to get up to speed to the rest of the people or the other humans that had evolved on the other planets? Like I said, in my opinion, he's saying here that the Asians did not evolve on Earth, they evolved on Mars. Here he's saying that I put these people here now, another, well, that's 1100 years after this event, still 2000 years away from meeting the plane of the sun. Remembering that we meet the plane of the sun here, we've got the opposite effect of what we've got now. Here you see the planet slowing. Just exactly what that does, I don't know. We're not in that situation. Seems to be here that he put some animals on here as well. Like there's a little goat here behind this cart. Down here there looks like there's a sheep or something here, or a llama or some sort of creature that's been, you know, maybe they put a whole lot more animals on here. I don't know. That there certainly would seem to me to be, and a depiction here of the placement of peoples back on the planet once it comes back in past Mars, and I would say they're coming from Mars. Okay, so there are certain people that will be sitting on Mars, and we will habitate that planet again within the next, well, 15,000 years, because 18,000 years from now, following the criteria set up in the timing here, 18,000 years from now, Earth will be back out beyond Mars. That's what they're going to do. They have to. This situation of must have been a deal initially with the people. That's why I'm saying there's people on our planet know exactly what I'm telling you here is all 100% correct. They may know some of it, but they may not know all of it. I certainly wanted to put that in because to me that would appear to be the situation, that we are getting told here in a way that not all the races on planet Earth come from Earth. You know, they come from a mixture of 3 planets. That is something else there that would depict that we will get to be having 2 planets that are usable, and I would expect when it goes beyond Mars, well, humans won't be on the planet. You know, that's what I would expect, that they put us all back on Mars, and then they go through another building process with another civilization once we've finished, you know, our thousands of years. Now, these processes of learning and teaching make sense. You do not want people leaving our planet with the you know, either spiritual awareness or unawareness, I should say, of spirituality. It's all over their behaviour. Even with 15 million years or support, what it would have looked like from that plate. 15 million years is a long time to be doing such a thing. And they, especially when they were intelligent enough in the very first instance to save the planet. So I would suspect that the situation here is that we are seeing the sequence of events that need to be brought the planet all the way back in. So in other words, one big comet here, another 3 here, another 3 here, 1 comet there and 3 there, and another comet, or we're there and we're finished our cycle here. So I'm looking at that as possibly events that are taking place during the process to get the planet back in here. It's a whole lot of events that's needed to drive the planet back in. And remembering that we're laying, or in my opinion, it's getting stood up here. That's why we're looking at this line across on this one, this movement back in, and maybe they're saying this one here, we just drop one at the bottom and we stand the globe back up here with that one. Okay, that's what I'm absolutely certain is going down there, and from there into here we are actually coming in with a straight axis to meet the plane of the sun into the inner ring here. Now before I move away from that, I'll just let you know that this is the underwater aerial image of what is perceived to be an aerial. It is in Antarctica, which is, you know, quite a fitting thing. It's actually the southern, the southern impacts that tilt the planet. I'm wondering whether we're seeing here just a hard version of the same thing, that we're seeing the sequence of comets here. I don't know, it may be an aerial, it's just, there seems to be 4 on each one of those rather than, 3 or whatever. But then again, it's writing on a cave wall, you've only got one plane to write on. So maybe the dot in the middle is reflective of both. So I don't know, I'm just suggesting to you that, in my opinion, that's something we need to look at, whether or not that's in actual fact just an indication of how many strikes they've had to get that planet Earth from there back into the inner ring. That could be what it's about. I'll show you one other thing. What we're seeing here is a glyph, or at least a copy of the glyphs that represent modern transportation. We get told by the Egyptologists that these are being written over. That's a load of rubbish. That's a helicopter, speedboats and, craft. They were around 6,000 years ago. We were flying around in UFOs. What I wanted to do here was bring attention to these, because is that not cuneiform text? Sort of. Looks a lot like it. When I bring up cuneiform text, what's it look like? This is cuneiform text. Sumerian text. By the way, this is Pinterest.com that these sites are on. That one is anyway. I'm not making any money here, so you boys want to come and sue me, I haven't made a cent in 18 or 8 months. So good luck with that one. I haven't made any money, but it's too important not to put these in. I will make it. It's Pinterest.com is where these images are from. I have, like I said, approached the Prime Minister about getting images for the book, free of charge, for my supply of my information back to him about planetary motion, free of charge. What we're looking at here, I've seen people tell me what the Egyptian glyphs mean, and I know I can look at them and say, well, yeah, you can tell me that, but I can tell you now that they are talking about planetary motion, and the Egyptian glyphs are exactly that. They tell you about pole shift events, they tell you about the rotation that gives you 3 months of darkness to the almost to the tropics. That's what happens on some of these cycles. The Earth is in complete, well, let's say the Earth, up until the tropics almost, it's in complete darkness. So where I live here in Australia, on the east coast or northern New South Wales, we would get 3 months of darkness almost. My winter sunrise would be 12 minutes over there, north, rise and set within 12 minutes, and I'm in darkness for the rest of the day. And that gradually increases till you get the other effect where the sun doesn't go away. This is what they tell us happens on the cycle that we've just finished. Only 3,000 years ago that event was where it was. The situation is there's megaliths all over the world built to tell you exactly that. I would wonder whether or not then we are reading this as to what it's supposed to be, because I'm looking at that and saying, well, when we look at what they've got to do to twist and turn the planet, in other words, how many comets, what sequences, to initiate the sequence we had last time, we had 3 comets, one as a warning, the other 2 to tilt the axis, then had 2 in the northern hemisphere to push the planet down, and then we had 4 in the southern hemisphere to stop the planet's movement and to let it go the rest of the way. The southern hemisphere being just above Australia. There were 4 meteors that hit there. I'm wondering whether we look at this, are we not seeing this? Are we not seeing the possibility that some of these characters here are not actually what we're getting told at all, that these are part of a sequence of what they've got to do? Okay, well, we're going to get 3 and we're going to put this one down first, so I'm going to mark that one. And what's it going to do? I'm going to hit it like that, and then I'm going to go bang like this, which is what they're doing. So, we might be seeing here in the Sumerian cuneiform text, maybe not quite what we think we're seeing. We could be seeing here the very sequences, all of them, written out over the millions of years. The very comet sequences and the way they've hit the Earth to turn it, to twist it, to move it, to lay it flat, to lift it back up, and such things like that. I just think that, you know, this one here, there's no line on this one. We say this is the letter Q. We know to stand it up, when it's in the outer ring, you do not need to hit it with a comet. It's a Tunguska event, because if they sit it like this and they get it at the right time, where it's at 24 degrees axis tilt and it's up like this, they need a Tunguska event, and it'll enough to lift it up. It actually hasn't had to strike the planet. We seeing that here? So I think we should ponder as to whether we're actually assessing this as to whether it's actual fact character sets, or it's an actual fact an instruction manual on how they twist the globe and in which manner the comets come. And it could be just an event of multiple comets, multiple ways. They obviously got to drive it back in and do multiple things all the time to get it to push back in. They've got speed rotation issues where they've got to speed the planet up, other times where they've got to hit and slow it down, and which might be why you see some come in at different angles of coming from the other side, because you've got to slow the globe here. See this one here? There's a couple like that where you've got one coming in at the side, another one there. So I don't know, I'm just saying that maybe we should be looking at that and pondering as to whether we've really assessed what it means. I just zoomed out a bit so you can see my globe. I did mention to the Prime Minister that I was going to put this on the end of my counter when I went to try and sell my books, because I'm not getting any radio or TV. I've tried. Having said that, I don't really want to be at a TV station. I left the band long ago because I didn't seek fame nor fortune. I wanted to get smart and do something else different and learn about, well, I just fell into computers and electronics, I guess is how I ended up doing that. The two red marks I've put here. This one here is Maralinga, where the British did the atomic tests after the Second World War. This red mark here is right on the same line of longitude as the Earth was tilted on 6,000 years ago. That one there is Hiroshima. I don't think putting that globe at the end of my count is a very sensible idea. All it will do, it won't get people angry at me, it will get people angry at seeing that is that, and that's in line with this that I'll insert now over the other side of the globe. It's hard to dispute that it's not on the same line of longitude, and that you have hidden from us major planetary movement issues and have hidden them from mankind for a long, long time. That is not the best way for the Australian public to find out about this, because I can tell you now it's going to make people mad. They won't be mad at me, they'll be mad at everybody that lives down about, works in an area about there. That's not the best way to do this. We need to do it where we're not instilling a crazy bunch of maniacs living in this country to go down here and take care of it themselves. We've got to do it the right way. This, on the end of my counter, is not the right way, Mr. Morrison. Okay, we've made a step in the right direction. We've spoken now publicly about increasing life sentences. You cannot leave your own Parliament alone. I can tell you now, there will be nothing left of the Parliament there if it isn't sorted out very, very quickly. This is unacceptable, and it would be unacceptable for me to put this on the counter, because that was pretty immature and totally unprofessional. But nonetheless, it's all I'm left with if you do not understand that the acceptance of the discovery has to be made. Whether you want to say it's a bloke who lives up north who wants to remain quiet and calm, I don't mind, that's fine. I don't want to make $1 billion, but I have to make a living. I've still got bills to pay. What we need to do here, and I would suspect it still needs to be done as a full study. So, Mr. Prime Minister, what I would prefer to do is get the Australian government to employ my services, if not to go and do such things. I certainly want to go around, certainly the East Coast, and instruct some people in the world, in our world here in Australia, how to do this. If you don't already know how to, I've tried to put lessons up on how to recover the images off the rocks. You don't need to be a rocket scientist with this inserted image now showing you it's on the very same line of longitude as both this red dot here at Maralinga and this red dot here, which is Hiroshima. It's on the same line of longitude. Anybody sees that. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. It's going to make the person upset. They won't be upset at me. They will be upset at the people that work in this little place down here, so we don't want that. It's really a fruitless exercise. The last thing we need to instill is public rage. We need to maintain management. The best way to maintain that is with honesty and truth. That is the only way that that'll be maintained. Doing this and me doing such a thing like that is stupid. It's not a benefit to my fellow countrymen for me to go and do that. It's a benefit to our fellow countrymen for you to stand up on your TV, sir, and tell us why that actually happened, and hold the people responsible for that actually happening and the 100 million people that died in the process of covering up that attempt to slow the globe process towards the plane of the sun has resulted in 100 million people being killed. That's not the best way for me to do this. You have to explain that on TV, on national TV, just like you have requested life imprisonment for pedophiles. So it's a hard job. You got in there at a hard time, Mr. Morrison. I do realise that. And I do realise that my family issues have a bit of a problem for you as well, but they still have to be dealt with, mate. That's just the way it is. That's the end of these videos, because I'm pretty sure now that is all I need to do at this point. If I get an inkling that there's something else that crops up, that is what I will let you know. Be aware once again, the meteorites separated our landmass here, and it was all done in the last instance. It was made separate. The only way it can get here via water. There was a reason for that. They will make this our base, our country, their base. They will get here, and this is where they're going to set up base, I would expect. That's all from Brian Whitten and ET Art for this point. I hope you found this video certainly absorbing in some respects. A little trip back from Mars is one hell of an education, isn't it? It seems to be that we have been made up, certainly of 3 planets, and it would indicate to me in that cave, that drawing on that cave wall is exactly what they've told us. It may very well be written in many other places as well. But that'll do for me today. Have a nice day. This is Brian Whitten and ET Art. Bye bye.